Buongiorno, buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, everyone. Before starting this meeting, on behalf of all of us, I want to convey a message of solidarity to the population of Ischia that last night was affected by an earthquake.
I dati economici di questa estate.
The economic data of this summer show a reversing trend. There's a growth of industrial production, a growth in consumption. There's also a growth in unemployment, which is absolutely important. However, this trend reverse is not automatic. This initial growth does need support. It needs to become robust and sustainable. Italian economy does need to grow. First of all, in order to create employment, especially for the youth. It needs to grow to become stronger at international level. Our companies need to become more robust in order to tackle different problems related to other countries and especially emerging countries. And it does need to grow to become sustainable and to tackle public debt, because when the European Central Bank will come up with quantitative easing, consequences will have to be faced and tackled. The question is, what are the Italian resources? How can Italy grow, develop and exploit all its potential? This is the topic of today's meeting. So first of all, let's welcome the Minister for Economic Development, Mr. Carlo Calenda. A big round of applause to him.
L'amministratore delegato di
And then Randstad Italia CEO, Mr. Ceresa. The Innovation and Sustainability Director from Enel, Mr. Ciorra. Engineering CEO, Mr. Paolo Pandozy. And BMW Italy Chairman and CEO, Mr. Solero. Now, let's start with engineering. Now, engineering is an Italian company witnessing growth in a sector where Anglo-Saxon and especially American companies prevail, dealing with software and information technology services. This company grew by acquisition and the participation of some international funds. It has 20 subsidiaries. It is based throughout Europe and Latin America and the United States. Paolo Pandozy came 1 year after its setting up and led the growth of this group, which is certainly a virtuous growth in a very competitive market. They make a lot of investments in research and training. And this is one of the reasons why this company was able to reach the level. Today, this company is one of the major ones at European level. In 2015, they hired 1,000 people, including many people under 30, which means that when a company grows, a company can also invest in young people. My question is going to be based on the vision that you can read on the company's website, which is, promote innovation in organizations, processes, and services. And most importantly, with the passion and enthusiasm of an Italian company. So what is this passion and enthusiasm of an Italian company? This question to you. Thank you and good morning to all of you. As Mr. Scholz said, I've been working in this company for 34 years. Over this period, Italy has been digitalized. Italy started to get digitalized in the 1970s with the first organizations. Today, we are at a turning point. There is a major quality leap, especially in our sector. And this is also due to algorithms. This is what is called artificial intelligence. And this is making the difference in all the market sectors, such as banks, public administrations, healthcare, utilities, and the industry itself. I'm going to focus on the impacts brought about by the transformation on industry and on the concerns that people have that robots might sooner or later replace workers, and not only, thus creating more problems to Italy as a whole. Employment has been lost in Italy due to a different phenomenon. For years, we've been losing hundreds of thousands of jobs because companies are relocating to emerging countries. And that happens because in a global market, competition becomes global, and therefore companies try to find better conditions for competitiveness. So they took companies, they relocated them elsewhere, but these were the same companies that we had some 50 or 60 years ago. And they now looked for countries where they could pay less and where there were less workers' rights. This is how we lost jobs, many jobs. Today, there's an enormous opportunity that we have. A robot is cheaper than a Chinese, and therefore we now have the opportunity to bring manufacture back to Italy. So the trend could be reversed. This is not theory, this is already practice, because this is happening increasingly. Now, the market has significantly changed, not only in production and manufacturing, but also in all the chain value production. From when you place the order to when the order is delivered. So companies must be integrated into this process, where the time of delivery becomes absolutely important. So the company has to be close to the markets, as in European and American markets, which is already happening. The reshoring is extremely positive as a phenomenon, because companies are now located near the markets. Italy is the second European manufacturing country. So Italy plays a fundamental role in this process. However, we need to provide governance. So we need to manage this process. Otherwise, manufacturing will come to Europe, but maybe not to Italy. Maybe manufacturing will be taken away from China and India, but will not come back to Italy. Three prerequisites are needed for a company to invest. First of all, tax system. a good tax system, which is good for entrepreneurs. We do know all the effects and impacts of the tax benefits imposed by the government and especially by Minister Calenda, focusing on innovation and Industry 4.0. Impacts are there to stay. But that is not enough. First of all, these measures must become structural. Entrepreneurs must be sure that they're going to have them for a long time. But also, we need to work on taxes as a whole. We now have a single currency. We now have and belong to a community of states legislating on the diameter of seashells. Still, Europe cannot impose equal conditions at tax level. So we need to work on that. Otherwise, companies will come back to Europe while choosing the countries which are most beneficial in terms of taxes to them. Second prerequisite, the country needs to work well, which is where Italy has a lot of weak points. We need a streamlined public administrations helping companies to develop, which does not work as an obstacle. Here, the public administration can do a lot in order to improve efficiency and ensure a better relation between the country, the public administration, and the citizens and entrepreneurs. But we are just taking the first steps. Public administration is far from being streamlined, which is a weak point. The third prerequisite which is needed, and I think this is the most important one, competencies and skills. Companies need different skills which are different from traditional companies. So developing skills requires a long-term process. Schools must be involved. Trainers, first of all, must be involved. Trainers must be involved before students. And in this context, the situation is a dramatic one. Italy has one of the smallest number of graduates throughout Europe. And graduates require more time to find a job in Italy than elsewhere. As we all know very well, in Germany, for example, when people get a diploma at school or university, more than 90% of students work within 3 years. In Italy, 50% of them find a job within 3 years. Then Italy has the largest percentage of overskilling, as in graduates who work and have jobs that unqualified people could do. And this is dramatic. This is a real problem. And I'm saying that out of my personal experience. As Scholz said, we've been hiring 1,800 people since 2015, and it was very difficult for us to find very qualified people. We are the last Italian company having a residential training center. In 2016, we invested in 16,000 training days in order to update our colleagues and employees. Our company invests 45 million every year in research and development in order to meet customers' and market expectations. This is the paradox that we have in our country, which is the following. So young people go to school, then young people have a diploma, finish off their secondary school, they finish off the university, and they end up into a black hole. Nobody knows what happens. Today, in Italy, 30% of young people no longer study, no longer work, and are not looking for a job. This is the so-called NEET generation. It's my first time at the meeting in Rimini, and yesterday I met wonderful people, wonderful young people. I met volunteers who are passionate, but are also skillful. They have skills, and they're wonderful. So if you look at these guys, if you look at these people, they all wonder, but what am I going to do after I graduate? And it's a nightmare for them because they don't know what the future holds in store for them. So somebody has to take charge of these people and take care of these people once they will graduate at university. When we finally find somebody, a young person that we can hire, we know that, we understand that this person has been looking for a job for years. So the Labour Ministry and the Minister for Public Education should join forces so that once young people graduate or once young people get out of high school, are not abandoned. We have a lot of resources, young people in Italy. Just look around you during the meeting. We have a lot of young people, and we cannot waste this wonderful resource. So basically, these were the topics that were most dear to me and that I wanted to underline. We don't need to be afraid of robots. No fear of robots. And I always give this example. The robots that we meet every day, every morning when we get out of home and that we use very often are called ATMs. The ATM is a robot, is a stupid robot that has replaced people working in banks. But do you think that the number of people working in banks has decreased due to ATMs? Well, no, actually it has increased because ATMs are tools which are much more productive than people working in banks. It works 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And it has created many new jobs making ATMs work, whose number is higher than people working in banks. But they do a different job. It's no longer an automatic job. They do smarter jobs. So to conclude, automation, robotics can just benefit Italy and cannot reverse the and can now reverse the trend of our companies that in the past used to go elsewhere and now are coming back. Thank you. Thank you very much to Paolo Pandozy. And now let's talk about innovation. We're going to have with us a representative who, before joining Enel, was working on innovation. He also taught innovation management in many business schools, and he was a professor in many master's degrees. He is also a poet. So I'm going to ask him a question in the following way. In order to do innovation, do you need to be particularly creative, or is innovation possible for all companies in a systematic way? Do you need to be a genius, or can we all contribute to innovate our companies in a sustainable way? To you the floor, Mr. Ernesto Ciorra.
Well, thank you. And Paul Valéry used to say that the first line is always easy, but then the rest is very hard. And Edison used to say that the first 1% of an idea is innovation, is intuition, but then the remaining 99% is all effort. Well, there are some countries or some areas like Bangalore or Silicon Valley or Israel where there seems to be more innovation. And for instance, we have a leading technological institute in Bangalore that was established 70 years ago. So you can invest in building ecosystems of innovation. But let's see some data first. I would like, first of all, to share with you some remarks that stemmed from a cafe in Rome the other day. And well, the population in Rome is used to meet sometimes authorities almost by accident because it's the capital. And I remember going to the tender, the bartender, and tell him, all that you have bequeathed you by your father, earn it in order to possess it. And the bartender told me, gentlemen, well, actually, my father didn't left me anything, so I didn't inherit anything from me. Well, so as you can see, well, the new generations here in this country are not maybe to be bequeathed very much or not a great situation. So on the one hand, we can consider the truth of this sentence, but on the other hand, we need maybe to try to improve the situation. So this bartender made me think about this, made me think about that maybe we could improve our situation and try to improve society, create more jobs, improve environmental protection, and probably we should do even more. And which is the role played by large companies in that respect. There are many jobless young people. We can't recruit everybody. We can't, simply. But we can try to support the more talented young people so that they can remain in this country to avoid the brain drain. So we want to help young people create startups, and we are trying to attract American venture capitals or other venture capitals to support youngsters with great ideas. So we want to make investors meet innovative young people with very interesting creative technological ideas. So again, this is what you can do. And sometimes when it comes to large companies, there are people who know their stuff very well, know their thing very well, and sometimes that is also a drawback, because sometimes because of such specialization, people remain a bit close into their own ideas, because sometimes you need to be innovative and create things like Uber or Airbnb. So I would like to propose you a game. Let's play it together. So I just stand up to be more visible. So this is simply a mathematical calculation. So please say out loud the result of this calculation. So 1000 plus 40, what's the result? 1040. And plus 1000, plus 30, plus 1000, plus 20, plus 1000, plus 10. So you all said 5,000 in the end. Who said 5,000? Raise your hand. I said 5,000. Yes, don't lie, be honest. Yes, raise your hand if you said 5,000. So those who said the truth raised their hands. The others didn't. But if you make these numbers appear on the screen faster, well, there will still be some people saying 4,000, but others will say 4,010. So consider an average age of this audience of 30 years. Well, certainly, if you answer 4,100, well, you certainly just wasted 30 years of learning because you got it wrong. And actually, this exercise is easy peasy, is extremely simple. So again, Even a child can learn that. I mean, you try to learn a dominant rule, and to save time, you applied it, even if you didn't have to, because 40 plus 30 plus 20 plus 10 makes 100. But your brain applied the dominant rule, so add 1,000, and so everybody said 5,000. So in 5 seconds, I just cancelled 30 years of mathematical learning because somehow I numbed your brains. So this is exactly what some companies do, because they keep doing the same things for many, many years. And so people somehow working for these companies just switch their brains off, because these companies say, well, this is how this sector works, but doing so, they prevent themselves from other ways of thinking. So what are young people for? What are startups for? Well, exactly for that, because they have innovative ideas, they think off the beaten path, they think laterally, but they do not know sectors very often. They do not know legal constraints, they do not know maybe the law details, but they come up with great ideas. So again, this is groundbreaking. Let's think about Uber. You can be in favor or against it, but certainly that also improved the level of service provided for by taxi drivers. Let's think about Airbnb. So what's the meaning of this game? Companies need fresh ideas coming from young people. And we can't recruit everybody, but let's help these people become independent and become their own entrepreneurs. Well, I established 3 companies and I sold all of them. I have a bit of experience myself. So I would have wanted a great company supporting me, maybe some investors, maybe some sort of counseling, and not maybe a bank asking me to sign a mortgage that could make me lose my own house. And I would have had some simplification of the legal rules, and that has been partially done. So from a political point of view, startups have been a bit facilitated, but again, this is what we need. We need certainly to make skills and companies meet. We are helping now Italian companies meet companies from Israel to come up with new innovative projects. So this is not impossible, because sometimes young people, fresh minds, see other paradigms because they have no prefixed things in their minds. What do you see now on the screen? What do you think it is? What are you saying? Well, a duck, a swan. Somebody else sees a rabbit. If you look at it from the right, you see one thing. If you look at it from the left, you see another thing. Some see a rabbit, for instance. Again, sometimes people are blocked by their own mental paradigms. We launched in cultural program called No More Excuses. So no excuses. I mean, you have to try to do something, or there are people who tend to put things off or say, oh, it's not our area, it's not our sector, we are not competent for that. I don't want to hear that, because some people say, oh, it won't work. That's it. That's the problem sometimes of our companies, our mental limitations, and young people do not have that. Would have lent your money to these people, to this bunch of people. This is the core group of people that established Microsoft. Well, they look maybe like a bunch of hippies, maybe taking LSD, I don't know. Or they don't look maybe very reliable, isn't it? But they established Microsoft. One invented MS-DOS, and then some other guys, just the one standing, the Swiss standing, invented Office. And then you see on the bottom left Bill Gates again. Well, probably if he had found some investors, his life would be easier. And with the other guy on the bottom right, he established another company because he wanted to do geomarketing at that time to sort of do something. And then they went bankrupt. Usually in Italy, if you go bankrupt once, you won't get any money from anybody because you are on a blacklist. And again, they fortunately had the chance to try it again. So again, it's like trying to chat up a girl. You can't just give up after the first negative answer. You have to keep trying. Again, that's the same idea. Okay. And there are many mothers that say to their children, oh, what are you thinking about? If you try to establish your own company and then you go bankrupt, your life is going to be ended. Okay, you see, we need to go off the beaten path. Impossible is nothing. I have a short video about a guy who was considered as a disabled guy, and a guy who was told that he would have never been normal. Never, ever. And well, this has nothing to do, sorry. Well, and please, let's see this video. I hope we can see it properly. Let's try again. I'm sorry, the video is not being played. Could anybody try to do something? Here it is. The guy's name is... Well, I was told that some... tests had been made, but you see, technology is never 100% reliable. Let's try again. 1, 2, 3. No, I'm sorry. No video. But his name is Lionel Messi. And please leave this slide on. And is a video showing that Lionel Messi was born with a major hormonal impairment, and everybody was telling him that he was no normal child at all, that he had to undergo many treatments. That's why he accepted to move to Barcelona. And now you know that Lionel Messi is one of the greatest football players of all times, but he was always told, you will never ever do it. Again, many young people hear the same message, and first and foremost from their families, and that's where we need to work and improve, because we need to push, we need to encourage, we need to motivate and support young people, because not all of them can be recruited, and we have such a great group of SMEs in Italy. We talk about startups, but the US professors I talk to, they tell me, how is it possible that you are so good at creating companies like Tots, like Technogym, like Armani, like Prada, like Dolce & Gabbana, and I could go on with so many other names. Well, creating a connected and collaborative environment is what we are trying to do. We want to set up the so-called Open Italy. We want to connect Italian startups, important Italian companies with international companies to work together and finding innovative solutions. And we have worked with 1,600 startups in the world, and we have now 80 collaborations underway. And we brought many American and Israeli investors to Italy, and we are creating new technologies, making Italian technology meet foreign technology, and we would like other people doing so, because we want to help materially and pragmatically Italian companies. These are the Sustainable Development Goals set by the UN to improve humankind. We adopted 4 of them. Education, trying to make energy more accessible to those who haven't access to it, and we set quantitative goals, 1.5 million people to sort of be made more easily accessible to energy. Again, we are trying to achieve these objectives, not because we're good people, but because we think that there are great threats, but also great opportunities to make business. We have more than 1 billion people with no access to energy, so making people have access to energy means sort of creating new markets and improving the life of more than 1 billion people. But we need to start up to do that. We need people thinking differently, people who are not limited, people who have new skills. So Open Italy to us is the right approach. It is what we're doing. We're trying to involve large and medium companies and institutions that are extremely collaborative, both at local and national level, universities, research centers, innovators, free innovators, and then environment supporters. that can really play a great role in that respect. In order to improve our situation, well, Italy has worsened its environmental protection situation in environmental terms. We need to do something on that. And then we have NGOs and other associations. We have European and national subsidies. And also we try to find company incubators and startups. So these are the players of this Open Italy system that needs to be connected with the Open Israel, Open Spain, Open US, and so many other open countries that decided to be open with this approach that is set within a larger ecosystem. So don't be afraid of the future, because you are the future. So we can decide our future every day, every morning when we wake up. We can decide either to be happy, either to be sad or angry, regardless of what is then going to happen to us. And again, there is a last lesson from a US professor who decided to spend his last 3 months of life in the best possible, happiest way. So I try to have this approach every day as an Italian citizen, as an Enel worker, and as a human being. Right, so I'm finished. And for those who are afraid of their future, who think they will never make it, they're afraid of failures. Well, we launched a program entitled My Best Failure, because you can learn a lot from failures. And I have a last video. I hope that this is going to play, because it's very interesting. And can we see maybe the last video? Can we watch it? Yes. After being cut from his high school basketball team, he locked himself in his room and cried. It was Michael Jordan. He wasn't able to speak until he was almost 4, and his teachers said he would never amount to much. His name is Albert Einstein. Was demoted from her job as a new anchor because she wasn't fit for TV. Her name is Oprah Winfrey. Got fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. His name was Walt Disney. At age 11, he was cut from his team after being diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency, which made him smaller in stature than most kids his age. His name is Lionel Messi. At 30 years old, he was left devastated and depressed after being unceremoniously removed from the company he started. Steve Jobs. A high school dropout whose personal struggles with drugs and poverty culminated in an unsuccessful suicide attempt. Eminem. A teacher told him he was too stupid to learn anything. Thomas Edison. Rejected by Decca Recording Studios, who said, "We don't like their sound, they have no future in show business." The Beatles. His first book was rejected by 27 publishers. Dr. Seuss. His fiancée died, failed in business, had nervous breakdown, and was defeated in 8 elections. Abraham Lincoln. Failure is the first step to success. If you've never failed, you've never tried anything new. Please subscribe, plus like, plus share, equal more. Try, try, try. And if anybody is going to tell you will never ever make it, just don't care.
Potrebbe anche essere un messaggio non.
Well, maybe it could be a collective message, as in if we get all together, we can do something very interesting and very important. So how can we provide the youth a job opportunity? How can we help people train in a qualified way? These are the questions to Marco Ceresa, who joined Randstad Italia in 1999. Randstad is based in 40 countries throughout the world, and so you can compare the situation at international level. Well, thank you very much, and good morning to all of you. Now, first of all, we're talking about growth today. And I think that Italy is now in a growing phase because it has come out from a very significant crisis. And after a crisis, there's usually growth. This is in the short term. In the long run, Italy has a lot of resources in order to have excellent results. Now, thinking about education, our primary sector, we have a fertile ground. We start from the food and agricultural sector, which made Italy famous throughout the world. Over these months, Bologna has been investing in FICO, which is the Italian agricultural supply chain, showing that Italy is one of the worldwide leaders in the food and agricultural sector. Even in terms of production and manufacturing, Italy has a lot of important companies that will expand abroad. Think about tourism too. We have all the different components which are key for growth. However, there is something which stands against growth in Italy, which we're starting to see today, and we will increasingly know in the future, which is the demographic crisis. There is fewer and fewer people born in Italy. Out of 2 people of my generation who will retire over the next 10 years, there will only be 1 person replacing them. So over my generation, there were 1 million children born every year over the past years. For example, last year, 485,000 kids were born. Out of these 480,000, 250,000 are young girls who will be mothers in 30 years' time. So the working population will account for 1/4 of today's working population. The number of people working multiplied by their productivity results in the GDP. And this is the problem we will need to focus on in the long run. So the largest number of people will need to work in the long run because this is a way to increase their productivity, and this is also a way to fight against economic degrowth. How do we do that in Randstad? Now, first of all, we provide guidance in schools to students. We go to comprehensive schools and then high schools as well as universities to provide guidance to students. This year, we have been working with 3,000 schools. We don't tell students what they should do, but we make them think about their attitudes, about their skills, about what they could do in order to be happy and in order to exploit their talents. When I was young, I wanted to be a pharmacist, and somebody told me, you know, you're never going to be happy to be working in a shop the whole day. Hence, I chose something else, and then I ended up in this job. In addition to providing guidance, we also started to set up educational training centers whose purpose is to train people in line with companies' needs. Companies' needs today are changing very fast. So it is important to provide the skills and competencies quickly. And to us, training centers are important to help companies find the people they need in order to grow. After training these people, we let them join companies and the work of labor. Today the world is different. Today, we have more applications than people available. There's a difference between competencies required by companies and competencies offered by people. But there are two types of competencies. On the one hand, you have hard skills, the skill that you can learn at school, as in speak English, be able to work with IT. But also the attitude of these people is on an equal footing, is equally important. In Randstad, we believe that it is very important to meet people when they are young, because we need to explain to them the skills required by companies. What are the skills, attitudes? For example, the ability to work as a team, no longer on an individual basis. The ability to understand what internal and external customers may ask for, may demand. The proper mindset. So this is what we do, basically. We prepare the youth to work and to develop their career. Thank you. Thank you. There's 200,000 jobs that cannot be covered, as in welders, chefs, engineers, people working in mechatronics. That shows that there's a mismatch between training and companies' expectations. Yes. What is absolutely important is also the preparation and the training of people coming from other countries. We're doing a very interesting experiment with one of our customers. We are now recruiting people for a warehouse. It is difficult to find people working at nights in some cities. So we found these people who actually are not Italian, and we train them from a cultural perspective. So we have with us a cultural interpreter, because one thing is to get people come here to Italy without helping them. A different thing is to let them come here and help them, providing them with the right cultural approach to work. That has generated a change in these people who have now become real good citizens. So we cannot let them alone. Thank you. There's no German car without Italian components, which says that the two European manufacturing countries, as in Italy and Germany, are interdependent. We cannot separate them from an economic point of view, which means that they both need each other. Throughout the world, and in Europe, first of all, there's a mutual challenge. One country is waging a challenge to the other. So my question to Sergio Solero, who is the CEO of BMW Italy, is the following. What are you doing facing the new challenges of digitalization? And what are you doing in order to work in this context? Yes, this is a very nice question. Thank you. I'm going to talk about the present and the future. There's a short video which is going to give you an idea of the major changes affecting the automotive sector today.
Il futuro è cominciato.
The future has now started with mobility, which means a lot more than transport. Today, mobility provides new opportunities, individual opportunities, personal opportunities, which are full of enthusiasm. They give us time to dedicate to something else because it is connected. It gives us the pleasure of driving whenever we want it. Mobility, which is exciting. Luxury gets into a new dimension. Mobility, which is not only connected to cars, which is always there when we need it, which can adapt to us the way we are, providing us a new way to interpret security and to have a new freedom we can enjoy. The future has started with mobility, making everything possible.
Ecco, come avete visto è un...
So this is a short 2-minute video. This is not an ad. Rather, it is a video that was launched by the BMW Group for the next 100 years because we celebrated the first 100 years of our group. So this is the strategy, the future strategy of our group, the way we were going to transform it. As you can read in all newspapers, all the automotive groups are now concentrating and focusing on technologies, new technologies. It's a very significant transformation, maybe the largest transformation ever of the automotive sector. Many CEOs of automotive companies are saying that over the next 10 years, innovation will be much larger, much bigger than in the past, over the past 100 years. The BMW Group has summarized into 4 axes. A as autonomous, automated driving. C as connected and electrified. S from shared. It's 3 technological trends plus a user trend. New generations are much more open to sharing economy. As Mr. Scholz said beforehand, at European level, industrial supply chains are strongly connected. And there is a lot of connection between Italy and Germany. In the 1990s, 50 or 60% of an added value of a car was related to mechanics and therefore basic components, which were often developed by the company itself. Now, that accounts for 70%, and it will reach 80% according to forecasts. So it is working as a system is becoming more and more important. Why so? Because mechanics now goes hand in hand with electronics and all the new technologies that you've watched in the video. Last year, together with the new group strategy, we launched the creation of a consortium, which is open to everyone who wants to get on board, to create a platform for the autonomous car of the future. We did that with Intel plus Mobileye, which is an Israeli company working on sensors. And there is another automotive major group, which is FCA, which is now on board of this platform. So it is important to work as a system. In any case, Italy is there in every BMW, in every Rolls-Royce, and in every BMW bike. I'll give you some data that the minister knows very well, I think. Now, talking about Italian exports for automotive components, according to data from last year, 20 billion euro as against 14 billion euro in imports. So we're very strong in that. So 3.9 billion go to Germany. BMW buys 1.75 billion of components from Italian companies. So we have a market share of 30% to Germany, which is much higher than our usual trends, because BMW is now working on premium segments and is looking for suppliers working on excellencies and can find skills in Italy, in Italian SMEs having the right technology and working on components. The data over the first 6 months show that this sector is one of the leading ones for the growth of exports and GDP. So this is a great challenge that we have to take on. Italy should focus on the mobility of the future. Today's mobility will not be the same one as in the future. So, for example, we need to exploit the opportunity of the electrical system. But Italian entrepreneurs need to believe into converting their companies into new technologies. They need to hire the digital youth. Hence, the importance of having new skills for the youth. Italy also needs infrastructures, digital cities, interconnected points in cities, plug-in stations. So we will need to have a clear vision of urban transformations and energy policies. This is all needed in order to prepare Italy for this major step forward. Small and medium enterprises need to convert their current systems, the current manufacturing systems, into innovation products. So they need, for example, to start producing electrified cars from mechanics to electronics and sectors. BMW, for example, today is now renewing its orders to Italy and other countries in order to assess and understand whether the company is now focusing on the future. So the company is now forgetting what has been doing in the past in order to look at the future. Here we have a shared responsibility. The government and institutions have to work together with confederations and national companies and the manufacturing sector as a whole. Altogether, they needed to promote and guide this process, working together for common objectives. Courage is needed. We need to look at the future. We need to push change rather than wait for change. Waiting will not help, because otherwise our automotive manufacturing sector will be outdated. In order to do that, we need research and development, we need innovation, we need a stronger link between training centers, universities and companies. As an engineer, I often ask myself one question, as in, how important is it to renew university curricula so that they can better respond to the market needs? Italy, well, actually, I lived abroad in many different countries, and everybody is acknowledging Italy as the country of inventions, not just for Galileo Galilei or Leonardo da Vinci, but we have Natta, who invented plastic at the university in Milan. We have Rubbia. We have great names of science. Why can we no longer invent? Italy has now the largest number of SMEs in Europe. Why can Italy now not create the digital startups promoting in today's innovation? Open Italy is certainly an excellent idea. Enel is one of the sponsors, and we joined the idea as an international company in order to help these new trends develop in Italy. Yesterday, I heard President Tajani, who talked about the European agenda. One of the priorities is to create employment and to reduce youth unemployment, which is very high in Italy, as we all know. So these are some of the sectors where the private sector can invest, but the public sector does need to provide support, does need to motivate and create all the necessary prerequisites. So We can welcome the national plan with the different benefits and all the different economic incentives. I believe that one of the largest problems in Italy today is the lack of significant investments over the past 10 years. And also our style, the Italian style. Sometimes we pretend to change things, but actually we don't change anything. This is not helping us in a fast-changing world. To conclude, Italy is rich, especially rich in human resources. And today, first of all, it needs to believe it can change, going back to be an engine for innovation as it was for thousands of years. And our sector, the automotive sector, must be clean, must be sustainable, and must be able to give our children back a better world than the one we got from our fathers. And as I'm the father of 3 children, I feel responsible for that. Thank you. Now, let's continue with the question. Why do German companies want Italian components? Why is Enel a world leader in green energy? Why can energy engineering expand at an international level while being strongly based in Italy? While is ABM investing in Milan, setting up its own research center? Is there anything peculiar in Italy? We need to be aware of that. Otherwise, we don't understand what we can enhance. So, since Calenda has become a minister, priority has been given to industrial policy. An industrial policy which is totally different from the one that was implemented in the past after a break of 20 years where nobody was talking about it. So we want to know from him, what do you intend to do? What are your plans for the Industry 4.0? In order to enhance and exploit all the potential that we have in Italy, which has been untapped so far.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. As Deputy Minister, I was invited here to talk about internationalization. Internationalization go often hand in hand with innovation, and they also share some similarities, and I'll talk about that in a second. Well, Italy is a multifaceted country. It's made of several realities and aspects. Last year and this year, we had a record of exports, 417 billions, plus 8% this year. Nevertheless, these excellent results and performances do not have the suitable repercussions on the whole country because they affect limited areas of the country. Very often in the summer, people spend time on useless topic and like to debate over silly things. And one of the silly topics for this summer is the following. Well, we had good export GDP results. Well, then, is the crisis over or not? Well, some say yes, some say no. Usually the people at the government say yes, it is over, and those being part of the opposition say no. But people sometimes are confused, get confused idea. Well, the crisis is not definitely over because you can say it is over when you at least break even with the situation before the crisis. I'm the Minister for Economic Development, and I would be more than happy to say that the future is bright and the present is excellent. But still, being too optimistic sometimes is not positive at all. We still have to recover 6 points of GDP before the pre-crisis situation, and we still have to recover between 300,000 and 400,000 jobs to recover compared with the pre-crisis period. Because of that, we still need to feel not totally safe. We can't afford resting on any laurels, not at all. And so it's not about non-existent shortcuts, because actually the situation is not that good yet. We need to work hard and to invest. That's the point. Well, the second question I want to share with you is the following. Why is it so that Italy, that is so good for many things, was so hardly hit during the crisis? And Italy was the most hit country. We lost 1/4 of our manufacturing sort of company base. Who is to blame for that? China or somebody else? There were other factors to be blamed? Well, there were several factors, but certainly during the previous 25 years, our industry and our manufacturing sector just were not considered by politicians at all, because there was enough for everybody. Banks had no problems, restaurants were full, and nobody had any problems, so nobody was worrying at all. So my clear message is the crisis is not over yet. Things are going slightly better. Things are going better for some groups, for some companies, for some workers, for some areas of the country, but it's still too limited, the recovery we are having. So we still need to invest in the labor market, in production, in manufacturing, and so just go beyond the heritage protection attitude, because if we do not invest in production, if we do not invest in the labor market, we won't never ever grow. Secondly, we need to invest, and I agree with what the previous speakers said, because not only investment went down during the crisis, and this is extremely dangerous. We never have to forget it. That's why I really want to underscore the importance of investments, especially with the Industry 4.0 project. Moreover, we have to face a very fast technological and cultural change. And actually, the scientific revolution started in the 16th century, and now we're having the globalization. But now the pace of change is absolutely incredible, extremely fast. It was never so fast. I worked for Ferrari, I worked for Sky, so for quite technological companies. But I think that technology should be considered in a specific way, because technology is complex, it's not easy at all. And I mean, no epoch-oriented change can be linear, simple, and streamlined. Not at all. We need a strong governance, we need investments, we need suitable policies that need to be consistent over time for a long time. Otherwise, we really risk to encounter problems. I say so because some people in our country, especially people who are not seeing the recovery, are overwhelmed with fear. They are afraid of the future. They are afraid of technology. They are afraid of this very fast pace of change. I'll give an example. Let's take artificial intelligence. This is a huge topic. But this is not, totally positive. I mean, we still don't know exactly how will artificial intelligence evolve and develop. And if we pretend to know that, if we pretend to consider it as a simple and streamlined phenomenon and process, we risk to encounter the same mistakes we made with globalization. Well, do you remember that? Everybody in the beginning said, oh, the globalization will bring only good things, everybody will get benefits from that. Well, the Western world model will be spread all over the world. Well, that didn't happen. There were problems. And so on the one hand, we had 1,200,000,000 people who finally are not poor anymore, and we have record export levels. But on the other hand, some production sectors disappeared or changed radically and dramatically. So we need to govern change, to try to understand it in order to control it. But now I'd like to talk about our industrial policy. Well, as I told you, I've been working for many companies for many years, and in the past, I used to be quite reluctant about world industrial policy. In Italy, usually, industrial policies have always followed a certain paradigm, that is the following. 3 general directors of a ministry get together, they call a group of university professors, and then they decide that Italy will become top, I don't know, in the chemistry sector. Well, at that point, they decide that only chemistry players will get subsidies, and these subsidies and resources will make Italy the top world leader in the chemical sector. What is then the outcome? Italy does not become the top world leader player in the chemical sector, so billions of euros are wasted, and all that has many strong hard repercussions on the tax level. So this is a very centralized industrial policy model that made a lot of harm to this country since the 90s on. And personally, I try to uproot this methodology by explaining people that if people are able to understand the winning sector in the future, those people should just resign from their civil servant jobs and become entrepreneurs. So it's not up to the government to make strategic choices for companies. It is not up to the government to decide which technologies are going to be the winning ones in the future when it comes to the 4.0 technology. Well, simply because the government is not skilled to do that. And the government sometimes is not even able to allocate the right level of expenditure. For instance, I found non-allocated subsidies that have not been distributed. 10 billions of euros were there, just stagnating. So I'm trying to do something about that. So what's our project when it comes to the technology 4.0? So the state wants to reward the entrepreneurs who decide to invest. This is the decisive parameter. And the choice is made according to the investment strategies of these entrepreneurs in their specific sectors. Well, we heard this morning that we are champions when it comes to SMEs. Well, I think we had a good startup encouraging laws, but I have a doubt about that. Why is it so that an small medium company cannot be considered as a startup if it invests in the textile sector, but if it is considered as a startup if it invests in the digital sector? And this mechanism doesn't seize a very important element that with Industry 4.0, we want to get together, to get closer, manufacturing sector and digital sector. So it is up to this government to decide which are the sectors are going to be innovative. Because sometimes you need to be innovative in any sector, in the agro-industry sector, in the textile sector. So again, we need to be neutral in terms of a sectoral approach, because these subsidies need to be used in the best possible ways. We don't want to have too much bureaucracy, so we want to streamline things, because such approaches are very powerful. and we want to allocate 20 billion euros to this program. And so globally, we're going to guarantee companies 22 billions of resources. We want to support companies that invest and then that have medium rating, because in the past, the state used to support companies also with higher levels of rating. When you allocate 80% of a triple A rating, who are you giving money to? To the company or the bank representing it? And then, then which companies should you choose? So again, this program is part of a broader strategy that goes hand in hand with the Jobs Act, the productivity salary, and many other measures. So this is a global complex mechanism that puts entrepreneurs and private initiatives at the very heart of this strategy. And again, I think that we need to believe in such approaches, even though in the past many were reluctant about that. Of course, I'm not saying that anthropologically we are better in terms of entrepreneurs and companies, but still, when it comes to market economies, private companies are the key players, and there's no alternative to that. There's no other way to generate growth. So companies need to be put in the best conditions to thrive and recruit people and create jobs. Well, during the approval of the next budgetary law, we have to face two main topics. On the one hand, creating jobs for young people. And we need, on the one hand, to provide young people with the right level of skills. And on the other hand, we have wage costs that are very high. And this is going to be one of the critical areas for the next budgetary law. We're going to reinforce the 4.0 industry financial resources to support companies, and we really want to set quantitative goals in order to double check if the money allocated for such measures were effective or not, and if not, what should be changed. Then we will see whether it's going to be the case to work also on education and especially on training made by the companies on the workplace. Manufacturing digitalization is a key process for two reasons. First of all, because these SMEs have to grow and will be more vulnerable to international market fluctuations and will be better at adapting to economies of scale. And secondly, we can take back to Italy many manufacturing activities that now have been delocalized. But maybe this is going to create some changes. Well, this is something that is going to happen. We need to foresee that. That's why we're going to create tax breaks for on-the-job training. We want to start, preventing some problems, because, for instance, if we take the banking sectors, well, if it is true that ATMs create a new sort of good things, but, the banking sector was hardly hit by some phenomena, because sometimes the layoffs of the banking sector have problems in finding new jobs, also because of their average age. And all that fits perfectly into something else, into a broader scenario, because, well, as you know, there is a certain economic nationalism that is rising. We saw that in some respects, and even our close cousins sometimes sort of forget being European when we buy up some of their companies, but still, nevertheless, that doesn't mean that we're going to close our borders, because last year we attracted more than 40% of investments. We want to attract investors and not to reject them. Well, I think that investment rejection is a proof of weakness and not of strength. So we need to say aloud no to that. But this is something else than closing borders. The world is getting more and more challenging. On top of that, this country lagged behind when it comes to promoting policies likely to make our industrial sector grow. Then we have to consider the broader international scenario, especially when it comes to the Western world. We're going through hard times. And these are things we need to keep in mind, because on the one hand, Italy needs to remain open, but on the other hand, it needs to be more assertive and to be strong, to be more decided, and more determined. So we need to be in favor of the free market, of course, and in Europe, we were the first to say no to the free economy market status given to China, because that would have been destroyed many Italian companies. This has nothing to do with the sort of creating an unfair level playing field. Now there is a zero tolerance approach. And saying that doesn't mean being protectionist. Simply, it means that we realize that, well, the game got harder. Things are more difficult. That's why, with the colleagues of France and Germany, we proposed to extend the scrutiny and manpower of acquisitions made by extra EU countries when it has to do with the high technological intensity sectors, and when one target could be or was taking patents simply to shift them and move them to other countries. So we need to get stronger in that respect. So as you can see, there are several drivers to be considered. As a result, we need to invest in sciences of life, tourism, culture, technology. These are great market drivers. As far as we are concerned, I think that the market will exponentially grow. But at the same time, obstacles and difficulties will exponentially grow as well, especially our ability to react in time and in a more flexible way to what's going to happen. Because sometimes there are other players who seem to be more reactive than us, more responsive. So we need to develop these responsive skills. We need to work on long-term projects, so Industry 4.0, but also the National Energy Strategy that is going to be published in September. We also need to be able to explain that these phenomena are complex phenomena. We need to stop being either pessimistic or optimistic. That doesn't mean anything. People got rid of that because, I mean, these categories are just sort of non-real categories. We need to be simply sort of true to reality and see what happens and try to consider exactly just the real facts, nothing but that. I think our country has a chance to make it. Moreover, the intermediate social entities and bodies will play a key role. What we do at the government is not enough. I mean, the whole society in its entire complexity needs to be engaged in this process. Everybody needs to be on board. If we're going to be true to reality and create a long-term business plan for this country, then Italy will generate prosperity. But this is not to be taken for granted. We need to work very hard. Italians, we have to work very hard, but we know that they can do it. Thank you.
penso che...
Thank you very much to our minister. It is evident that economy is always based on culture. There is an awareness of what we have received and what we can do. And we have seen that Italy can do many things, and I accept your invitation as in working together, doing together. But in order to do that, we must have a common belief. We need to be able to share the ideas on what we are doing or what we're working on. And this is connected to self-awareness and to what was said on Sunday. This is of the utmost important. Otherwise, shortcuts are needed. But what is important is to look at what we have received in a very realistic way, because in Italy, this has to be connected with courage. If we look at all our Italian experiences, we have to acknowledge that there's an enormous potential in Italy which can be exploited by companies, managers, entrepreneurs, intermediate entities and politics, as we have heard this morning, which does not lead, manage, but enhance. To conclude, I invite you all to support this meeting with your donation, which you can give to the different stands where you see the writing Dona Ora, donate now, because as we've seen this morning, the meeting is a very important venue to promote understanding and dialogue. It is an increasingly complex world where this is an opportunity for people to meet and to talk about complex topics, because complexity does need to be tackled. So the meeting wants dialogue, understanding, sharing, and we're asking each one of you to do the best that you can do in order to support this meeting. Thank you very much to all of you for participating in this.